Why is there a female Mr. Mime? Where do unknown come from if they don't breed? Why can Nidoran female breed, but Nidorina and Nidoqueen cannot? How are Dittos formed? Why does Ash never age? Was there really a war between Kanto and Johto right before Ash was born? Why is Charizard not a dragon? Why do the evolutionary lines of Venonat and Venomoth flip their head antennae and horns for the final evolution? What does Diglett really look like underneath there? Same with Dugtrio. Bulbasaur really should be considered two species living symbiotically, plant and the dinosaur like amphibian, I'm guessing. Where do the metal parts of Blastoise come from? Does he eat metal as a Wartortle? Why do stones cause certain Pokemon to evolve? Does Clefairy really come from the moon? How can a Meowth learn English? How do trainers understand what Pokemon are saying if the language sounds just like repeating its name? Why does Mankey lose its tail when it grows up? How do some Pokemon evolve in branching pathways, like Poliwhirl and Eevee? How does Machoke grow extra arms when he or she grows up? Why do some Pokemon evolve when traded? How does that work physically? Why does the Shelder on Slowbro's tail look so different from other Shelder? How can Doduo learn fly with no wings? How does Doduo grow an extra head when it gets older? Why does Geodude have genders, but Magnemite does not? How do you tell the gender of a Grimer or Muck? How do ghost Pokemon breed? When you hatch an egg and Execute is born, where do the extra eggs come from? Why does Cubone's mother's skull have nose holes, but when Cubone gets older and becomes Marowak, it does not have nose holes? Why does Marowak have a spike on its tail like Kangaskhan? Why are Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan only male, while Chansey, Kangaskhan, and Jinx are only female? Coughing seems to be venting explosive gas, but it's not weak to fire. Why? Tauros is only male and Miltank is only female. Are they meant to be the same species like cows and bulls? How exactly does Magikarp turn into Gyarados? And how does Gyarados fly? How do evolutions work? How are they so drastically different in appearance from Eevee and from each other? Porygon moves freely through cyberspace. Does that mean it's a Digimon? How do we resurrect fossil Pokemon? Does that have anything to do with them having rock typing? How does Kabuto mature into Kabutops? Why do legendary Pokemon have no gender? Do legendary Pokemon die? They can't breed. What happens if they die? How does Dragonair turn into Dragonite? Grow wings, legs, arms, change skin texture and color? What exactly is Mew? What is Togepi? How does Flaffy evolve into Ampharos? How does being bitten by a Shelder give Slowking intelligence? What does Pineco and Fortress look like under their shells? How does Scyther evolve into Scizor? How does a fish, like Remoraid, evolve into an octopus, like Octillery? How can Skarmory fly when it's made of metal? Why is Kingdra a dragon type? If Tyrogue and Hitmontop, like their earlier generation cousins, are only male, where do they come from? The same with Smoochum being only female. Miltank, Blissey, there are plenty of other examples. Where do these single gendered species come from? How do they reproduce? Is species maybe the wrong term? How does Elekid change into Electabuzz? If Celebi can time travel, How can it lose? How can Wurmple turn into different cocoons, then evolve into either a butterfly or a moth? Shedinja is the shell of a bug that has come to life. How is the shell alive? Where do Plusle and Minun come from? How are they related? It seems like Volbeat is the male version of the female Illumise. Maybe they're the same species. How does Trapinch, looking like a snapping turtle, turn into the dragonfly like Vibrava? Why is Altaria a dragon? If Geodude has genders, like we said before, why do Lunatone and Solrock not have genders? How exactly does Feebas turn into Milotic? How does Snorunt, an orange triangle thing, turn into Glalie, a ball of ice? How does a clam like Clamperl evolve into different fish? How does Beldum work? Metang seems to be two Beldum attached to another piece of metal, and Metagross seems to be four Beldum attached to a single piece of metal. Does that mean it has four brains? Or five? Does the central piece have a brain if it never existed as a child form? And where do new ones come from if they have no gender? Latias is the female version of the male Latios. Are they legendary? Why do they have genders when other legendaries don't? Why is Groudon not part fire? It lives under magma. It should be fire. What exactly is Jirachi? If Deoxys is an alien virus with 5 different forms, then is his name meant to resemble deoxyribonucleic acid, as in DNA? Why is Burmese trash cloak pink? What kind of garbage exists where the Pokemon are that would be bright pink? That's not what Garbodor looks like, or Muck. Combee has 3 faces on its body. Is it meant to be 3 individual creatures that are just stuck together or working together? When a female Combee evolves into Vespiquen, what happens to the other 2 heads? Are they included in the queen or devoured? What happens if they weren't all the same gender? If the top left one or the top right one is a female, but the bottom one isn't, then is it still eligible to evolve into Vespiquen? Shellos from different parts of the island look different, but are still classified as the same Pokemon. Why? Ambipom evolves from Apom, but it has an extra hand tail thing. Why is the balloon Drifloon a ghost? The same with its evolution, Drifblim. How does Chingling turn into Chimecho? How does Bronzor turn into Bronzong? How does Bonsley, a rock, grow arms and turn into Sudowoodo? How does Carnivine levitate? How does Magneton turn into Magnezone? Electabuzz has 1 tail, but Electivire has 2 tails. Where does the extra one come from? Gallade is only male, but Gardevoir can be either male or female. Why? Frostlass is only female and also a ghost, but its pre-evolution also evolves into a male or female Glalie. Why is one gender split and the other not split? What exactly is Rotom? The ghost in the machine, maybe? If there were a cosmological chart of Pokemon, how would Dialga, the time god Pokemon, be related to Celebi, one of the time traveling Pokemon? What is Regigigas? Did it really create the other Regi Pokemon? Why is Cresselia female instead of genderless? A Manaphy egg can hatch into either Manaphy or Phione, but they don't evolve into each other, and neither have genders. So how can they share an egg? And where do the eggs come from? How do Shaman's sky form and land form work? Is it like a bird unfurling its wings? If Arceus created the world, how could we catch it? Physically, couldn't it just unmake the Pokeball and escape? What is Victini? How does Tepig change its hooves into arms when it evolves? How does Duat, the sea otter, turn into Samurott? What are the relationships between Pansage, Simisage, Panseer, Simiseer, Panpour, Simipour? They seem to all be monkeys of grass, fire, and water type, but they don't have any evolution linking them together. Not like Eevee, where a single baby form can turn into multiple adult forms. These are just incredibly similar monkey type Pokemon that are not related at all. Seems suspicious. Why are unpheasant males and females, despite looking so different from each other, viewed as the same Pokemon, unlike things like Volbeat and Illumise, which are viewed as different Pokemon, or Miltank and Tauros, or any of the other examples? What is Audino? Is the Timber evolution tree related to the Machop evolution tree? How are Sock and Throw related? Both only male, fighting, lines over their bodies in similar patterns, wearing martial arts clothing. What is the story behind Darmanitan Zen mode? What is Sigilif? Guardian of an ancient city, maybe? Are dinosaurs different from dragons? How is Trubbish, a pile of garbage, alive? And how do you tell its gender? Zorua and Zoroark can change their appearance, kind of like Ditto. But is it only an illusion, not molecular change like Ditto? Why is Gothita and her evolutions pure psychic and not part dark? Why do the males look like the females, which all appear stereotypically female? What are Solosis, Duosion, and Riunculus? Psychic floating brains with jelly surrounding them? Or maybe they're meant to be massive single celled organisms? How do Vanillite, Vanillish, and Vanillux reproduce? They all have both genders. Vanillux has two faces. They are ice cream. Presumably they could melt. How does Carablast, traded with Shelmet, transfer the metal casing from Shelmet to Carablast, then evolve at the same time, turning Shelmet into Excelgor and Carablast into Escavalier? Why are Frillish and Jellicent considered ghosts? What is Alomamola's relationship to Love Disc? What is Pharaoh Seed or Pharaoh Thorn? What is the story behind Clink, Clang, Clink Clang? How can the fish Tynamo, Electros levitate? How do Litwick, Lampent, and Chandelure have genders despite being candles? Where does Fraxure get all the gold armor when it evolves into Haxorus? Why is it not part steel or metal after the evolution? What is the relationship between Mindfu, Mindshao, and Meditite slash Medicham? What is Drudagon? Golett and Golurk are just a bunch of rocks being possessed by a ghost. Which ghost? Do you think it's Haunter? How are Rufflet, which turns into Braviary, and Vullaby, which turns into Mandibuzz, related? Are all four of them really part of the same species? Or are they meant to be two separate species? What is the relationship between Heatmore and Heatran? Dino, Zweilous, Hydreigon grow extra heads every time it evolves. The final stage can levitate and has wings. How does that make any sense? growing extra heads, growing extra limbs. There are so many Pokemon that do this. And then suddenly it can levitate. The genie Pokemon, Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus. What's up with their different forms? They turn into like four-legged dog things, but then sometimes they're humanoid males sitting on clouds. And again, they're gendered, but they're supposedly legendaries. So, what does legendary mean? If we have so many exceptions where some legendaries can breed, some legendaries have gender, some legendaries don't. How do fainted Pokemon use moves outside of battle, like cut, surf, fly, things like that? I found some evidence to suggest that Team Rocket in the early years was harvesting Slowpoke tails and selling them as food on the black market or something like that. This implies that people do eat Pokemon, but it's not legal. What do they eat? I see rice a lot in the eating scenes. There is that one famous screenshot of the filleted Magikarp. Maybe only certain Pokemon are legal to eat and others aren't. The idea of death is confusing in the Pokemon universe. In Pokemon Blue, there's a shrine to dead Pokemon, filled with Ghastly and Haunter. At the top of the tower, there's a dead spirit of a Cubone that the player has to put to rest. In Pokemon Black, there's an old lady that talks about a young girl from a long time ago that used to play in the area with her Abra. The girl died young, and at random times during the game, her ghost appears. It teleports or disappears when the player approaches it, and a nearby person notices and shouts about it. The idea of the legendary Pokemon is also very complex. Arceus, or Arceus, hate how there's no correct pronunciation of his name, created the universe, but it also created three other universes. One for Palkia, the god of space, one for Dialga, the god of time, and one for Giratina, the god of dreams and darkness and mystery. How is it possible that he created the universes, but is not the god of time and space? And where did he come from? Moreover, Mew does not come from these universes. Mew is one of a kind, but a fossil of a dead Mew exists in the Pokemon universe and was scavenged for DNA to create Mewtwo. If legendary Pokemon cannot breed, and there's only one of each legendary species, will they die? What about Celebi? What about Mew? Celebi helped Ash travel back in time and helped the Professor Oak as a child do something, and Oak remembered it. But Ash did not know which child he had helped or when. Mewtwo's cloning experiments also raised some questions about artificial Pokemon. Humans created Mewtwo, Porygon, Porygon 2, Porygon Z, and possibly others. Some rumors around Ditto. Mewtwo cloned a whole bunch of Pokemon and fought for equal rights. A right to live freely. How can we tell what is alive, what is a Pokemon, what's not? Many Pokemon look like mutated humans. Is it possible that people have been mutated into new breeds of Pokemon? Why are Pokemon limited to level 100? Why do all Pokemon reproduce via eggs? There are different egg groups that cannot breed with each other, but if any two Pokemon are compatible, it produces an egg, regardless of species. Did Arceus create life? Or did he just create the universe? How exactly do Pokeballs work? Why do Pokemon not attack humans to protect themselves? Why can Pokemon with the fly outside of battle ability or teleport ability not go short distances, like to the other side of a bridge or up a slope that you can jump off of, things like that? That would be real nice to have in a Pokemon game. Real convenient travel mechanic. Traversial? I don't know how to pronounce that. How old do Pokemon live? Why are there different teams in each region, such as Team Magma, Team Rocket, Team Galactic? Why do they not work together? Why is there a different Pokemon League and champion in each region? Is there a Pokemon World Champion? What do Pokemon in the wild eat? What happens to a Pokemon that you knock out and leave in the tall grass? What happens to a Pokemon that you've had since its birth from an egg when you release it into the wild? Why are some Pokemon treated like people or possibly slaves, like Machoke, Chansey, Mr. Mime, while others are treated like pets, Eevee, Pikachu, etc.? What does a map of the Pokemon planet look like? What about that planet's solar system? How intelligent are Pokemon? Are they inferior to humans? What about the psychic Pokemon? Or the Meowth that can speak English? Can Pokemon have human rights? Deoxys is an alien, a Pokemon from a different planet in the Pokemon universe. Are there more of it where it came from? Are there other non space capable Pokemon on its home planet? If Clefairy really does come from the Pokemon world's moon, how does it get to the planet? Are there more Pokemon on the moon that have not gotten to the planet? What exactly are water stones, thunderstorms, and other evolutionary stones? What are they made of? What's in them? How do they work? What about the ancient human and Pokemon societies, where humans and Pokemon had equal rights and humans had psychic powers? Where did all that technology go? What happened? Why did Arceus create the elemental plates? Why did it take pieces of himself or itself out and give them to humans? Why does Arceus need these pieces of himself to be immune to damage from that type of Pokemon? Why could Arceus not have done what the plates did without removing them from himself? Where do ghost Pokemon come from? Do they breed? Is every single Ghastly the representation of a dead something else? Why can people only carry 6 Pokemon with them? How do genderless Pokemon breed? Why do Pokemon need to be in a daycare to breed? What happens to Pokemon that are stored in the PC? What do they experience in there? If Ash can take Pikachu with him everywhere, why don't other people have armies of Pokemon following them around, like in the Lucario movie flashbacks? How many Lucario are there in the wild? What exactly is the power of Aura? Why did Pokemon wear armor and use metal weapons in the medieval ages? Does everyone on the Pokemon planet speak the same language? The humans, I mean.